Hi, my name is Christine Blanos, and I'd like to thank you for coming to this session on scenario-based learning and Articulate Rise 360. This presentation is actually created in Rise to show you how Rise looks and feels like a website. So I will be doing a lot of scrolling and clicking on links and showing you how you can go through it when you look at it afterwards. So let's start learning. As I mentioned, Articulate Rise 360 is web-based, so it's within the browser, and I'm just going to give you a little introduction by showing you a quick video.
Create beautiful, inherently responsive courses with Rise. Rise courses look amazing on big screens, just as stunning on tablets, and quite so perfect on phones automatically. Even interactive content works seamlessly on every device. It's easy to build Rise courses right in your browser. Choose from 7 premium lesson types such as video, labeled graphic, process, tandem, singing activity, and quiz. Or create a custom lesson with learning blocks. You can stack dozens of text space, image, gallery, multimedia, and interactive blocks anywhere you want. Just add your text and video, and it automatically looks for your Rise without having to go anything extra. It's responsive course authoring the way it should be. Simply effortless.
So that was a little introduction to Rise, and it shows you all the different things you can do. We're actually going to be focused on working with scenarios. So as I mentioned, my name is Christine Blanos, and I am an instructional designer at the Institute for Families through the Rutgers School of Social Work. It's my job to find innovative ways to present information as well as user-friendly technology. And I believe Rise is one of the most user-friendly technologies that you can find that is web-based and template-based so that you do not have to have any graphic experience. It also integrates really well with learning management systems such as Canvas. I have created a handout for you to follow along or look at after the session, which has some templates and information that we will be talking about in the session. So, what is scenario-based learning? It's an active learning strategy that allows learners to be participants in their learning. The scenario aspect gives real-life stories so that they become connected to the content. It also allows learners to have an opportunity to apply knowledge through solving a problem or navigating a situation. So now that we know what it is, why should you use it? Scenario-based learning allows the learner to be engaged with your content. So you can create lessons and have them go through and be part of their learning. It also motivates them because now they are using their skills and knowledge as opposed to just writing down an answer to a question. And it provides critical thinking for the learner. It gives them a trial and error based scenario that allows them to kind of think through their learning as opposed to just writing down on a piece of paper. So, scenario-based learning is really connecting the learners to the content, and for the future, it allows them to reduce that forgetting curve. So they will be connected to the content and then not forget in the future. So when you are thinking about creating a scenario, there are several different types that you can choose from. And they are all based on Bloom's taxonomy. The first is gaming, and that allows learners to use knowledge or skills to play a game. The second is issue-based scenarios, which allows learners to take a stand on issues to see how it affects decision-making. The third is project-based scenarios, which allows learners to integrate theoretical and practical knowledge to investigate a problem. The fourth is speculative scenarios, which allows learners to predict outcome of an event based on their knowledge. We are going to be using skills-based scenario, which just allows the learner to demonstrate skills or knowledge. So I'm going to show you an example of what a scenario looks like using RISE. And this scenario is using soft skills. So the learner will do all the lessons on an interview and how to land an interview, interview tips, and common interview questions. And once they go through those lessons, they will now be ready to go through the scenario. So the scenario is set up, it has a background, it has a character, and it sets the learner up to understand what the objectives are. So they will be interviewed, they will be asked several questions, and they need to choose the best choice. So here we have the character asking a question and giving 3 choices. I'm going to randomly choose one of the choices, and then the character gives a response. When I click continue, it now gives us the consequence to that choice that they made. So in this instance, it was a missed opportunity. So there's direct feedback to the learner as to how they did answering that question. So here's a second question. I'm going to randomly answer that one. She is going to respond, and then we're going to get our positive consequence in this case. Here's a third question. I'm going to randomly answer that. She's going to give us a response, and then we're going to get our feedback. So basically that's how the scenario works. There's no limit to how many questions you can ask, and at the end it allows the learner to start over and go through the scenario again. So that's how it looks in RISE. Let's talk about how to create it. When you are talking about how to create a scenario, I did some research, and Articulate's chief learning architect, Tom Coleman, came up with a formula, and he had a 3-step way of creating branching scenarios. In my further research, I found that there were 4 steps and different labeling to what those steps are. So I took Tom Coleman's steps and his 3 steps, and I added a 4th step to it. So the 4 steps are challenge, which has 2 parts to it. It states the objective, which is the setup, and then it presents the problem, which is the question or multiple questions. And then each question will have choices, and the choices have 2 parts as well. You can present the options with the choices, and then once a learner chooses a choice, there's a response for that choice. The third part is the consequence, and we talked about that immediate feedback as to whether or not the choice that the learner made was satisfactory or not. And then I have added a 4th option, which is the conclusion, which summarizes everything in the learning objective. So basically summarizing the scenario. So let's talk about how to create it. In your packet, in your handout, I have given you multiple templates. The first template is blank and shows the flow of how we're going to be creating the scenario. So we have the challenge area, which flows down to the choices, which flows down to the consequence, and depending on whether or not the consequence is satisfactory or not, it either sends the user back to the question or it brings you down to the conclusion. Another template that I have created is an explanation for each one of the C's, the 4 C's that we talked about. So the challenge has the setup, which is the objective of the scenario, and the question, which I mentioned earlier, you do not have to have just 1 or 3 or 4, you can have as many as you want, but each question should have several answers. Now I have limited it to 3. You can have more than 3. You should not have less than 2. And the consequences, and then the conclusion. So I explain what each part of this is. And now for the final example, I have created a sample that we are going to plug into Rise so you can see the steps on how to actually create it. So let's get into Rise and talk about how to create this scenario. First, you need to log into Rise. And in order to do that, you need to go to Articulate, which has multiple programs, including Rise, for a 60-day free trial. And you can use their templates to create the scenarios. So once you sign up, you'll see something that looks like this. And here are all the different programs that you can use in Articulate, and we're going to choose Rise. So I am going to go to my Rise. And when you get into Rise, for the first time, you're going to see a sample course. They give you information on different pictures and different types of templates so that you can play around with how to create a full course in Rise. We're not going to create a full course, we're just going to create a course that has one scenario. So I am going to come up and click New Course in the upper left corner, and I'm going to choose Blank Course. Now it gives you some options here for the course title, the description, and the lesson title, and we will get into that in a moment. First, I want to go to the settings. Now, in my course, you saw that I had a picture with passion lettuce here with the little feet, and you can choose that by going to Add Cover Photo. You can upload a photo of your own, or you can choose from the various pictures that they have available for you. And this is going to be on the introductory page of your course. So I'm going to choose something simple. And let that load. Oh, that's not what I thought I was choosing. Let's delete that and try again. Let's select something simple. There we go. And now the nice thing is it gives you a thumbnail so you can see if you chose the correct one or not. Now if I scroll down a little further, I can customize the theme. And once I do that, it shows me that image that I chose for the cover photo. And then I can choose color, and you'll see that this little line changes, and any accents that it puts in for you will have that color. I'll just choose blue, and you can change the fonts. I'm not going to change anything further. I'm going to go up to the upper right and click Save. And then I'm going to close out of the settings. So now that my settings have been set, I'm going to choose a course title. And my course title is going to be Sociology Theories. The scenario that I have created for an example is based on sociology theories, so that's what I'm going to call this, and I am going to give them some information. So use the information from class to complete this activity. And you can put any instructions. You can say use the theories, however much information you want. And now I'm going to add a lesson title, and I'm going to call this Sociology Scenario. And once I hit enter, I can now add content to it. So I'm going to go over to the Add Content button, and it asks me, do I want a lesson or a quiz? And I'm going to choose lesson. You may notice at the bottom there are some lessons that you can put in, but none of them say scenario. So we're going to go to the button that says all blocks and click that. And the scenario is under the interactive menu option. And I'm going to scroll until I find scenario and click on scenario. I need to close out of the menu. And now I can start creating my scenario. You'll notice that that blue color that I chose is the button. The scenario that I have chose is the learner is going to be in town and they're going to interact with someone who is asking them for money. So I am going to come up here to the upper left corner and click Edit. And now I can start creating the scenario. On the left side, you'll see the menu. And here we need to set up all the parts that we are going to be using in our scenario. So the scenario title, or 1.1 scenario title, is going to be the setup. And the 1.2 is going to be the question and the choices with the responses. Below that, in 1.3, is going to be where we have the consequence. Now, because we have one question with 3 choices, there are going to be 3 consequences. So I am just going to click these 3 little buttons to add and duplicate 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5 so that these will now be our consequences. So let's go back up here to our scene 1. And we're going to now customize this for our scenario. So I'm going to edit the background because this background is not an outdoor scene. So I'm going to search the content and I'm going to scroll until I find an outdoor scene that represents my scenario. And this is the learner is walking around a town. And I'm going to now change the character. So I'm going to click on Edit Character. It seems the internet is not cooperating with me. I'm going to close out of it and try it again. Okay, and I would like a casual. I'm going to make a male just because, and I'm going to select someone that they could encounter that might ask for money. So that's all we do to set up the scene. Now we're going to go to 1.1 and we are going to put in the challenge setup. So I am going to go to my template and I have already filled out the information that I want. And I am going to copy and paste the setup. I can also give it a title, which is Sociology Theories in Real Life. And you can name it whatever you want. And the next thing you can do is you can determine the facial expression and gestures of the character. I'm going to leave this character in the neutral position, which is where we started. And because he's not smiling, he's not frowning, he's just kind of standing there, and that's what we want him to do in the beginning. So I have now the setup, and now I'm going to add the dialogue. So I'm going to go to my template, and I am going to copy the question and paste it here. And now I am going to change how he is responding, how he is looking to the learner. So I would like to have him talking. Now you can't really tell what he looks like when he's talking, so if you want to see a better illustration of how he looks, if you click the drop down and scroll down to more, you can see a larger picture of what he's actually doing. And I like that, so I'm going to click select, close out, and that's the one I'm going to choose. Now below that, we are going to put our choices. So this is choice number 1 for the learner to choose. So I am going to go to choice number 1 and copy and paste. And we are giving him money, so he is going to be happy about that. And then I am going to put his response below that. Now, when we were looking at the templates, we said the first choice was not the correct choice. So we don't want it to go to the next scene. We want it to go to the first consequence. We haven't created it yet, but we mentioned that 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5 are the consequences. So I'm going to have this go to the consequence 1.3. I'm going to put in my next question. I'm sorry, my next choice, not question. And I don't know if I want him to be disappointed, so let's see how that looks. I think I'm going to go with a more neutral stance and just have him just be neutral. So you can go through and customize it. Now I'm going to have his feedback. So he's not going to be upset, he's just going to thank us anyway. And now this is the correct response, correct choice. So I want it to go to 1.4. So I'm going to choose Go To and click the drop down and choose 1.4. And I'm going to add my third choice. And once I press enter, it gives us all the information again. So I want him, we're talking to him a little aggressively, so I want him to respond as if he is not looking for trouble. So let's see. Going to choose this one, not looking for any trouble, and give the feedback. The response is like, I'm sorry, didn't mean to ruffle your feathers. And then I want it to go to 1.5, which is the consequence for the third choice. So now we have all of the question and choices, and we've directed all the responses to the correct consequence. So now let's set up the consequences. So consequence number 1, we don't want it to be a dialogue, we just want it to be a box to say whether or not they have done it correctly. So I'm going to go up to the upper right corner and choose from dialogue to text. I'm going to copy my consequence. And I'm going to give it a heading. This one's going to be try again. And I'm going to paste in the response. And now I want him to just be neutral again. And instead of going to the next scene, I want it to loop back and go to the question again. So I want it to go to scene 1.2, which is where the question is. I'm going to go to 1.4 and do the same thing. Change the dialogue to text, copy in the consequence, and this consequence is correct. So just put you did it. I'm going to leave him as happy because he's happy that we did it. And then I want this to go to, once it's finished showing you the consequence, I want to go to scenario end. So I'm going to choose 1.6. And that's the second consequence. We're going to the third consequence, change it to text, copy and paste. Give it a heading. This one is also try again. Change him to neutral. And I want this one to loop back to the question because it is not correct. So I'm going to loop it back to 1.2. And now finally we need to end the scenario. So I want to write in, you have successfully completed this scenario activity. And instead of scenario, and I'm going to put congratulations. I'm going to leave him as neutral. And go to end scenario. So now, if you want to, you may have noticed that I haven't been saving anything. Rise saves everything along the way, so you don't have to worry about clicking a save button. So once we are finished, we can preview it. And I'm going to preview from the beginning. And here's you can see the facial expressions. Here's our setup. Here's the question. Here's one of the incorrect answers. And try again. Here's the correct response. And we did it. Congratulations, you have successfully completed the scenario. You can start over or you can move on. So we're going to go up to the upper right and close the preview. And that's how you create the scenario. Now, I mentioned before, I'm going to close the preview, and I'm going to go up to this arrow up here and go back to our main page. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to go to the main page. We're going to go to we're going to get out of the preview, and we are going to now add the conclusion. So to do that, you just scroll down, and you'll notice you can add a text. I'm going to ask you to add a text, and it gives you a heading. I'm just going to put conclusion. And then I have some information that I want the learners to know about once they've concluded the scenario. And I can highlight text and format it in any way. And there's the conclusion. So now I'm going to go back to my main page in the upper left corner. And now I'm ready to take this and put it into my learning management system of Canvas. So I'm going to go to the upper right corner and I'm going to export it. Click on export. You do not have to change anything in the export. I just want to mention that the LMS is saving it as what's called a SCORM file. And I just want to point this out because in Canvas we're going to have to now set it up to receive a SCORM file. So I'm going to go up and click Export. It is going to download it to your Downloads folder. And you can see the export was successful, and there's the zip file. It's got 2 more seconds left. While we're doing that, I am going to go into my Canvas dashboard, choose the course that I want to put it into, and I need to go to Settings in the left menu, go to Navigation, and there will be items that you can see in the navigation, as well as items that are hidden from the students. And I want you to go down to the Hidden from Students area and find SCORM. And you're going to click and drag it up into the course navigation. Then you're going to scroll down, click Save, and now you can see SCORM in the menu list. So we're going to click on SCORM, and I have some things in here. Yours will be blank, and we're going to go up to the upper right corner and click Upload. You're going to go to your Downloads folder, and it'll be the first one in there for today, and click Open. And this is going to download into Canvas so that you can put it into your modules. While this is downloading, I just want to point out that we are now going to choose whether it's an assignment that is graded or an assignment that is ungraded. And you can see here there's 2 different types of assignments, so that's the next thing we need to do. And then we are going to place it into our modules, and then we're finished. So once it's finished downloading, you will be asked to choose an import type, and that is whether or not it's graded or ungraded. I'm going to choose ungraded assignment and click the Go button. Now that we have put it in the SCORM, you no longer need SCORM in your list because you don't want the students to see the SCORM. So we're going to go back to Settings, go to Navigation, and click and drag the SCORM into the Hidden from Students. Scroll down, Save, and now we're going to go into, oh, I did not save, let's try that again. And now we're going to go into Modules and add that assignment into wherever your modules are going to go. So I have my Rise Scenario module. I'm going to click the plus sign for Add. Here's my Sociology Theories that I named it. I'm going to add the item. I need to publish it because currently it's not published. And now I can click on it to see what it looks like in Canvas. So here it is. There's my background that I chose, the cover photo. And you may need to give the students instructions when they first see it. So I'm going to go to Edit Assignment Settings and just tell them, please use the scroll bar within the box to complete the scenario activity. I'm going to scroll down and click Save because unlike Rise Canvas, you need to save everything. I'm going to continue, and now here's the instructions that I put above it. And I could even said click Start Learning to begin. And when they scroll down, there is the scenario. So we're going to continue. They read the question. They decide which theory the answer would most likely represent. They choose it. Sorry, but no is our response, and then we give them feedback. You did it. You're correct. Congratulations. They can start over, and then they need to scroll down to find the conclusion. And I just summarized the different theories that were used within the scenario. So that is how you use scenario-based learning with RISE 360 to incorporate into your Canvas learning management system. Thank you.